Have you ever made a bad decision late at night? One of those impulsive choices that feels exciting at the moment but sends a shiver down your spine in retrospect? For Marcus, Jenna, and Rob, one such decision would unravel their reality. It was one of those suffocating summer nights. The dashboard thermometer stubbornly read 104 degrees, even as midnight approached. The air was thick, heavy, and hostile. Stuck in the car, trying to escape the oppressive heat, Jenna was scrolling through forums on her phone looking for abandoned places. That's when she found it. "There's this place called Stillwater Cove," she announced, her face lit by the phone's blue glow. "Mostly empty since the 80s. Think of the photos, Mark." Marcus, a photographer always chasing the perfect shot, couldn't resist. "Sure, why not? The highway's dead anyway." Rob, sprawled in the back, just grunted in agreement. It was the kind of reckless choice you only make when you're young, hot, and feel invincible. The turnoff for Stillwater Cove appeared abruptly, a narrow, uninviting path disappearing into the darkness. The smooth asphalt quickly gave way to crumbling gravel. Towering trees formed a dense canopy overhead, swallowing the moonlight and plunging them into a tunnel of black. A strange unease began to creep in. There were no other lights, no signs of life, just the narrow beam of their headlights cutting through the oppressive dark. "How much farther is this place?" Rob asked, his earlier nonchalance gone. "Map says 3 miles, Jenna replied, her own voice losing its excitement. They would never reach Stillwater Cove. 2 miles down that forgotten road, the engine sputtered, coughed, and died with a final apologetic wheeze. Marcus coasted to the side of the road, and they were plunged into a sudden, unnerving silence. Even the cicadas and crickets, the constant soundtrack of a summer night, were gone. "Let me take a look," Rob said, ever the mechanic. He popped the hood, his phone's flashlight beam dancing over the engine. His confident expression quickly soured. "This doesn't make any sense. Everything looks fine. It's like something just turned it off." That's when Jenna's voice, small and tight, cut through the silence. "Is that a gas station?" 50 yards ahead, a structure seemed to materialize out of the shadows. A faded sign, hanging by a single chain, creaked silently in the non-existent breeze. The Marlin Bay gas station. 2 ancient pumps stood like skeletal sentinels. A single fluorescent light above the door flickered erratically, creating a dizzying, strobe-like effect. "Thank God," Rob breathed, a wave of relief washing over them. "Someone might have a phone we can use." They got out of the car, the crunch of gravel under their feet sounding deafeningly loud in the dead air. The place was a time capsule from 1982. Rusted siding, newspaper-plastered windows, a vintage Coca-Cola sign with prices in cents. But the light was on. Someone had to be here. Marcus reached out to knock, but Jenna grabbed his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Look," she whispered, her voice trembling as she pointed across the deserted road. There were people standing there, 4, maybe 5 of them. They stood perfectly still like statues, their bodies facing the gas station, facing the 3 friends. Their clothes were strange, outdated and washed of all color. They didn't move. They didn't even seem to blink. "Hello?" Rob called out, his voice cracking. "Our car broke down. Can anyone help us?" No response. The figures remained utterly motionless, as if they hadn't heard a thing. They were just there, silent and watching. "This is wrong," Marcus muttered, his photographer's instinct kicking in. He raised his camera, peering through the viewfinder. The figures looked even more unreal through the lens, like hazy projections or faded memories caught between worlds. Jenna, meanwhile, was frantically trying to use her phone. Her face went pale in its glow. "No service, that's impossible. I had full bars right before we turned off." She tapped at the screen, her panic growing, and then she froze. "Wait, there's a number. It's just showing up on my screen like a notification." Marcus and Rob checked their own phones. It was the same on all 3. A single local number, one with an area code that hadn't been used in decades. "Should we call it?" Jenna asked, but her thumb was already pressing the dial button. The ringing was bizarre. It came from her phone, yes, but it also seemed to echo from the air around them, surrounding them. Then, the call connected. For 3 agonizing seconds, all they heard was ragged, desperate breathing. And then they heard their own voices. "Please, someone help us. We're trapped in Stillwater." It was Rob's voice, screaming in terror. "The figures won't stop moving closer." Jenna's voice, broken by sobs. "It's taking our memories, it's taking everything." And finally, Marcus's own voice, raw with a fear he hadn't yet felt. The call ended. The silence that followed was a physical weight. They stood, frozen in the flickering light, staring at each other, a primal fear seizing them. "That's not possible," Rob whispered. We haven't." His voice trailed off as they looked back across the street. The figures had moved. Not by much, just a foot or two closer, but they had definitely moved. And none of them had seen it happen. And there were more of them now. A loose semicircle of at least 8 silent observers. "We need to leave," Marcus said, his voice firm, taking charge. "Now. We'll walk back to the highway." There was no argument. They turned and walked fast, away from the gas station, away from the silent figures. The single beam from Rob's phone flashlight felt like a pathetic defense against the suffocating darkness. They walked for what felt like an eternity, maybe 20 minutes, their hearts pounding in their chests. They didn't look back. Then Jenna stopped dead. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Guys, we're back." And there it was, the Marlin Bay gas station, identical to how they'd left it. Their car sat on the shoulder, its hood still gaping open. "We walked in a straight line," Rob insisted, spinning around, his flashlight cutting frantic arcs in the darkness. "We couldn't have." "Look at the figures," Marcus interrupted. They had moved again. They were in the road now, forming a silent barrier between the friends and the path back. They were closer, clearer in the strobing light. Their faces were horribly wrong, blurred and indistinct, like photographs left out in the sun. Their eyes were vacant, their mouths slightly agape. The fluorescent light above the gas station door flickered off, plunging them into total blackness for a full, terrifying second. When it blinked back on, the figures were only 10 feet away. Their circle was tightening. "Don't blink," Jenna whispered, her hand finding Marcus's. "I think they move when we can't see them." So they stood there, paralyzed, their eyes burning from the strain of keeping them open, locked in a silent standoff with the motionless watchers. In the distance, a sound drifted on the heavy air. Was it the sound of ocean waves? Or was it the sound of whispers? Or was it both? The summer night was no longer just hot. It was a living, breathing entity pressing in on them. And somewhere in that suffocating darkness, Stillwater Cove waited, a place that remembers everyone who enters and ensures they never leave the same way they arrived. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there. They couldn't keep their eyes open forever. Marcus felt his eyelids growing heavy, the scratchy sensation of dryness making his vision blur. When he finally blinked, just for a fraction of a second, the figures were 5 feet closer. They were close enough now that he could see details he wished he couldn't. Their clothes weren't just outdated, they were rotting. Fabric hung in strips from their shoulders and waists, revealing skin underneath that looked like old paper, translucent and fragile. One of them, a woman in what might have once been a floral sundress, had no eyes, just smooth, stretched skin where her eyes should have been. Yet her head tracked their movements perfectly, a horrifying, impossible feat. "The gas station," Rob said suddenly, his voice a ragged whisper. "Maybe there's something inside, a back door, a phone that works, anything." It was their only option. They moved as one unit, keeping their backs to each other, shuffling sideways toward the derelict building. The figures didn't follow. Instead, they turned in unison, their heads rotating with a smoothness that was deeply, fundamentally wrong, like mannequins on a turntable. Marcus grabbed the door handle of the gas station and pulled. It opened with a blood-curdling scream of rusted hinges, the sound echoing across the silent lot. Inside, time had fossilized. A calendar on the wall showed July 1983, its pages yellowed and brittle. A coffee pot sat on a burner, the liquid inside long since reduced to a black, tar-like substance. Newspapers were taped over most of the windows, their headlines screaming about a local heat wave, about missing tourists, about a string of unexplained phenomena along the coast. The air was thick, smelling of dust and something sweeter. Something that reminded Marcus of funeral flowers left too long in a closed room. "Look at this," Jenna called out from behind the counter. Her voice was shaky. She held up a thick, leather-bound logbook, its pages filled with frantic handwritten entries. "It's a guest book people have been signing in here for years, for decades." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, his camera momentarily forgotten. The entries started normal enough. Travelers passing through, truckers stopping for gas, families on vacation, their notes filled with the simple joys of the road. But as Jenna flipped deeper into the book, the tone of the entries began to change, to darken. A scrawled entry from June 15, 1983 read, "We can't find the highway. Drove for 3 hours. We keep ending up back here." Just a week later, on June 22nd, "The people outside won't talk to us. They just stare. We've been here 2 days. The food is running out." The next entry, dated June 28th, sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. "Tommy's gone. He was standing right next to me and then he wasn't. The others are still outside. I think Tommy's with them now." Jenna's fingers trembled as she turned to the very last page. The last entry was dated July 4th, 1983. The handwriting was a desperate, jagged scrawl. "If you're reading this, don't close your eyes. Don't let it take your memories. Once it knows you, it owns you. Stillwater remembers. Stillwater keeps." "We need to get out of here," Rob said, his voice tight with panic. He started backing toward the door, his eyes wide. But when he reached it, he stopped cold. His face went pale. "No, no, no, no." Marcus and Jenna rushed to his side and peered through the grime-caked glass. Outside, the figures had multiplied again. There were at least 20 of them now, maybe more, forming a complete silent circle around the gas station, trapping them. And among them, Marcus recognized someone. A cold dread, heavier than anything he'd ever felt, washed over him. "That's the guy from the rest stop," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Remember? About an hour before we turned off the highway, he asked us for directions to Portland." The man stood among the figures, his face already beginning to blur at the edges, his eyes losing focus, becoming as vacant as the others. He'd been real just hours ago. He had smiled when they helped him, had waved goodbye as he pulled out onto the road. Now, he was becoming one of them, one of the memories that Stillwater had collected. "How is that possible?" Jenna's voice was rising, teetering on the edge of a full-blown scream. "We saw him leave. He drove away." "Maybe he came back," Rob suggested, but even he didn't sound convinced. "Maybe he turned off the highway just like we did. Or maybe," Marcus said slowly, the terrifying pieces clicking together in his mind, "time doesn't work right here. Maybe we've been here longer than we think. Or maybe he's been here much, much longer than seems possible." A sound from outside made them all freeze. Footsteps. Small, light footsteps. Running. A child darted between the unnerving figures. A little girl in a faded yellow dress, her dark hair in pigtails tied with ribbons that might have once been red. She ran right up to the gas station window and pressed her face against the glass, cupping her small hands around her eyes to see inside. And then she smiled. Her mouth opened to reveal rows of teeth far too numerous, far too sharp. Her voice, muffled by the glass but perfectly chillingly clear, drifted into the dusty silence of the gas station. "Are you new friends?" she asked, her head tilted with an unnerving curiosity. "The town needs new friends. It gets so lonely here in the summer. Everyone always leaves in the summer. Thank you for watching. What do you think happens next in the town of Stillwater? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the unknown. Stay safe out there. Don't answer her, Rob hissed, his voice a tight whisper that barely carried over the oppressive hum of the summer night. But it was too late. Jenna, bless her kind heart, was already inching toward the dusty gas station window, her silhouette framed by the flickering neon sign. Through the grimy glass, a small figure stood, a little girl, no older than 8, with wide dark eyes and a smile that seemed just a little too big for her face. "Sweetie, are you lost?" Jenna called out, her voice soft and laced with concern. "Are your parents here?" The little girl's smile widened, stretching impossibly. "I've been here a very long time," she said, her voice clear and strangely ageless. "Since 1959. That was a hot summer, too. A cold dread, heavier than the humid air, began to settle in my gut. I'm Marcus, by the way." And that right there, that was the moment our road trip turned into something else entirely. "My parents went looking for help and they never came back," the girl continued, her tone conversational as if she were discussing the weather. "But that's okay, because the town takes care of me. It takes care of everyone who stays." Behind me, I could hear Rob's sharp intake of breath. 1959, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. It was impossible. She was a child. The math didn't add up. The timeline didn't work. None of this worked. "The town remembers everyone," the child said, pressing her small, pale hands against the glass. The glass didn't fog from her touch. Behind her, the other figures we'd seen, the silent, still people scattered around the gas station, had begun to sway. A slow, rhythmic movement, like tall grass in a breeze that I couldn't feel, like a field of sunflowers turning to face a phantom sun. It was hypnotic. It was wrong. "It keeps all the memories safe," she went on, her gaze fixed on us, an ancient knowledge swirling in her young eyes. "Every summer when it gets hot enough, the doors open and new people come. The town is so hungry for new memories. It's been feeding on mine for so long, I barely remember my real name anymore." The implication hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The town feeds on memories. And we were the new meal. "We're leaving," Rob said, his voice firm, cutting through the spell. "Right now. We'll drive straight through them if we have to." His words were the starting gun. We didn't hesitate. We burst from the gas station door, the jingle of the bell above it sounding like a scream in the silence. We sprinted for the car, our feet pounding on the cracked asphalt, my heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silent, swaying crowd. But they didn't try to stop us. The figures, the memories of the town, they simply parted. Like a curtain being drawn, they moved aside, creating a clear, unobstructed path to our car. My instincts, every fiber of my being, screamed that this was a trap. Nothing about this was right. It was too easy. They were letting us go. Why were they letting us go? Rob didn't care. He was already in the driver's seat, his hands fumbling with the keys. He jammed the key into the ignition and turned. The engine, which had been stubbornly, frighteningly dead just minutes ago, roared to life. A perfect, powerful sound that should have been a comfort, but instead felt like a death knell. We peeled out of there. The tires screeched on the pavement and Rob slammed his foot on the gas. The car lurched forward and we were moving, finally moving. The headlights sliced through the inky darkness, creating a tunnel of light in the endless night. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. The gas station, the figures, the impossible child. They were shrinking, swallowed by the darkness we were leaving behind. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost made me dizzy. We were out. We were safe. I watched through the rear window as the last flicker of the neon sign disappeared. The road stretched on, a black ribbon under a starless sky. We were driving fast, putting as much distance as we could between us and that place. Minutes ticked by. 5. 10. The only sound was the hum of the engine and our ragged breaths. And then I saw it. Up ahead, a faint, flickering light. A familiar crooked sign. My blood ran cold. "No," I breathed. The word a puff of disbelief. It couldn't be. The Marlin Bay gas station appeared in front of us exactly as we had left it. The same broken neon sign spelling out GS. The same flickering fluorescent light over the pumps. The same car parked out front with its hood propped open. Our car. That's our car, Jenna said, her voice numb, stripped of all emotion. But we're in our car. How can our car be? Her words trailed off into the horrifying, illogical space of what we were seeing. Rob slammed on the brakes. The tires protested and we skidded to a halt, the headlights painting a surreal scene. Through the windshield, we could see them. Us. 3 figures standing by the gas station, their bodies tense. It was a perfect replica of ourselves, frozen in the exact moment before we had made a run for the car. My photographer's eye recognized the composition, the lighting, the posture. It was us. And then, as we watched, paralyzed, our doubles suddenly moved. In perfect, horrifying unison, they turned and ran. They sprinted for the vehicle they were standing next to, our other car piled in, and drove away, disappearing into the same darkness we had just come from. We were watching our own escape. We're stuck in a loop, I realized, the words tasting like ash. My mind, usually so good at framing things, at finding the right angle, couldn't process this. The geometry was wrong. The physics was impossible. We're seeing ourselves from the outside. Time is folding back on itself. We weren't just trapped in a town, we were trapped in a moment. We were becoming a memory. And the town was getting ready to feed. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the Marlin Bay gas station. The little girl appeared beside Jenna's window, though none of them had seen her approach. She tapped on the glass with one finger, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. The town is remembering you now, she said cheerfully. Can you feel it? It's taking the little things first. Your middle names, your first pets, the name of your childhood street. Soon it will take bigger things, the faces of people you love, your own face in the mirror. And then you'll stay forever. Like me, like all of us. Marcus tried to remember his mother's face and felt a spike of terror when the image came slowly, fuzzily, as if viewed through frosted glass. Something was taking his memories, eating them like a parasite, and he could feel the holes it left behind. Rob, he started to say, then stopped. What was Rob's last name? He'd known it 5 minutes ago. They'd been friends for 3 years, but the information was simply gone, erased as cleanly as if it had never existed. Rob was staring at the steering wheel with an expression of profound horror. I don't remember where I grew up, he whispered. I know I had a childhood. I know I lived somewhere. But when I try to remember the town, the house, anything, it's just blank, it's just empty. Jenna was crying now, quiet tears streaming down her face. My grandmother, I was named after her, but I can't remember her name. Oh God, I can't remember her face. She raised me and I can't remember her. The figures were moving closer again, tightening their circle. Among them now, Marcus could see more familiar faces. People from rest stops, from towns they'd passed through, from gas stations where they'd stopped for coffee. All the people they'd encountered on their trip, all of them here now, all of them being remembered by Stillwater Cove. And then Rob disappeared. One moment he was sitting in the driver's seat, hands clenched on the steering wheel, and the next moment he simply wasn't there. Marcus blinked, certain he'd missed something, but Rob was gone completely. No sound, no flash of light, nothing. Just an empty seat and a lingering smell of ozone. Rob? Jenna screamed, twisting in her seat. Rob! Marcus looked out at the circle of figures, and his heart stopped. Rob was standing among them now, swaying slightly, his face already beginning to blur at the edges. His friend's eyes met his through the windshield, and Marcus saw recognition there, saw fear, saw a desperate plea for help. Then Rob's expression smoothed into the same blank, empty look all the other figures wore. It takes the ones who forget. Most, the little girl said, now somehow inside the car, sitting in Rob's empty seat. Neither Marcus nor Jenna reacted with surprise. Terror had moved beyond such simple responses. He forgot too much too fast, so the town claimed him. But don't worry, you'll see him again. You'll see him every time you loop back. And eventually you'll join him. Everyone joins eventually. The summer town remembers everyone who enters. Marcus grabbed Jenna's hand, feeling her pulse racing against his palm. Outside, dawn was trying to break. He could see the faintest lightning on the horizon, but the light never seemed to get stronger, as if sunrise itself was caught in a loop, forever approaching but never arriving. There has to be a way out, he said, forcing his mind to work through the terror. Every trap has a weakness. Every loop has a break point. The little girl tilted her head, and for just a moment Marcus saw past the thing she'd become to the frightened child she must have been in 1959, trapped here alone, watching her humanity slowly dissolve into memory and forgetting. "There is one way," she whispered, and her voice was almost human again. "But you won't like it. The town feeds on memories. To escape, you have to give it something it wants more than yours. You have to feed it something it's hungrier for." She pointed to Rob's figure standing among the others. "One of you has to choose to stay, willingly, completely. Give yourself to the remembering, and the town might release the others. Might. It's been so long since anyone tried." Jenna was shaking her head violently. No, we'll find another way. But Marcus was looking at the horizon where the sun refused to rise, and at Rob's empty face among the figures, and at the gas station where time had stopped in 1983. He was thinking about loops and memories and the price of escape, and he was beginning to understand what they would have to do. Retrieve. The sky was trapped in an endless twilight, caught somewhere between a night that wouldn't end and a dawn that would never break. I sat on the hood of our beat-up car, my camera feeling heavy in my lap. Jenna was pacing back and forth, her hands twisting in her hair. It felt like we'd been trying for hours to find a way out of this place. Every road, every single turn just led us right back to this same derelict gas station. We tried walking into the woods thinking we could cut through, but we'd just pop out right where we started. We even tried driving in reverse, only to come face to face with ourselves, an infinite, nightmarish reflection of our own despair. And Rob was just standing there. He'd joined the others, the silent figures swaying in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. I'd tried everything. I screamed his name, I shook him, I tried to physically drag him away. But it was like he wasn't there anymore. It was his body, but the Rob I knew was gone, replaced by the hollow hunger of this town, Stillwater. "I won't do it," Jenna said, her voice cracking. It must have been the 100th time she'd said it. "I won't choose. There has to be another way." I looked down at my camera, at the thousands of photos I had stored on it. My life, captured and frozen in time. I'd been scrolling through them earlier, and a chilling realization had dawned on me. Entire sections were corrupted. Faces were blurred into nothing. Places I knew I'd been were completely unrecognizable. The town wasn't just trapping us, it was eating my past, devouring the very memories that made me who I am. "Tell me something," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Tell me something about yourself, something important, something real." Jenna stopped pacing and stared at me, confused. "What?" "Just do it," I urged. "Tell me something true about who you are." She opened her mouth, hesitated, then closed it again, her brow furrowed in concentration. I have a brother. No, wait, do I? I feel like I did. I have this feeling of having a brother, but I can't see his face. I don't know his name. Maybe I'm an only child. I don't know anymore." I nodded slowly. The same thing was happening to me. I'd been testing my own memories. I tried to remember my father's voice, but all I got was silence. My first kiss? A complete blank. The house I grew up in was just an abstract idea. I knew I had one. But the specific memories, the feeling of home, had been scooped out, leaving only an empty space where something important should be. Up on the gas station roof, the little girl was sitting, her legs dangling over the edge. She was the one who first spoke to us, the one who explained the rules. She hadn't aged a day in the 66 years she'd been trapped here. She was hollowed out, her memories digested by still water until she was more a part of the town than a person. "It's getting faster," she called down to us, her voice echoing in the twilight. "Once you've been here long enough, it accelerates. Soon you won't remember each other's names. Then you won't remember why you even came here. And finally, you won't remember you were ever anything other than this, just standing and swaying, waiting for the town to need you." I looked over at the circle of swaying figures. I counted them, 23 now, including Rob, 23 people who'd made the same mistake we did. They'd turned off the main highway, probably on a hot summer night just like us, and found themselves in this place where time folds in on itself, and your memories become its food. "The town is a parasite," I said, the pieces finally clicking together in my mind. "It feeds on heat and isolation and lost people. Every summer, when the temperatures spike, it opens up. It becomes accessible. That's why all those old newspaper articles we found were about heat waves. That's how we were able to find this place to begin with. Knowing what it is doesn't help us escape it," Jenna said, the bitterness sharp in her voice, but I stood up, a new kind of certainty solidifying inside me. "Yes, it does," I said, "because parasites need hosts, and hosts have some power." The girl said someone has to choose to stay, willingly. That's the key. The town can trap us, it can steal our memories, but it can't force us to surrender ourselves. That has to be a choice. Jenna scoffed, gesturing at the silent, swaying group. "So what? One of us just volunteers to become one of those?" "That's not a solution, Marcus, that's just giving up." "No," I said, and I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "It's not giving up. It's understanding the rules of the game. The town feeds on memories, on the past. But what if we offered it something else? Something it's never tasted before?" I raised my camera, and in that single moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. A photographer's real skill isn't just taking pictures. It's seeing things clearly, understanding their composition, knowing what matters. "Every photo I've ever taken," I said, my voice gaining strength, "is a memory I chose to preserve. Not memories the town ripped away, but ones I actively, willingly decided to keep. There are thousands of them in here, decades of intentional remembering." I turned to look at Jenna to make her understand. "What if I offered it all of that? Every photograph, every story behind them, everything I chose to save. Not stolen memories, a willing sacrifice." On the roof, the little girl sat up straighter. For the first time since we'd arrived, she looked uncertain. "No one's ever tried that before," she said. "That's because no one ever understood what you really are," I said, speaking not to her, but to the town itself, to the heavy presence I could feel pressing in on us from all sides. "You're not evil. You're just hungry. You're a place that time forgot, so you consume time from others to remember what it felt like to exist. But stolen memories are weak. They're not given freely, so they fade. That's why you always need more. That's why people keep getting trapped here." The air itself started to vibrate, a low hum that I could feel in my bones. "But what if someone gave you concentrated memory?" I continued, my voice rising. "Decades of curated, perfectly preserved moments. Not just memories, but meaning, context, emotion, everything that makes a memory worth having in the first place. What would a parasite do with a gift like that?" I was about to find out. Thank you so much for watching this story unfold. If you enjoyed this journey into the twilight of Stillwater, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. I'll see you in the next one. Jenna clutched his arm, her knuckles white. "Marcus, you can't. If you give up all your memories, you won't know who you are. You'll be worse than those things. You'll be completely empty." Marcus looked at her, and for a moment the fear in her eyes almost broke him, but he found a strange calm settling over his heart. "No," he said, his voice gentle but firm. I'll know who I am because I chose this. And that's more identity than any of them have. He turned away from her, his gaze sweeping over the horrifying tableau before them. The humming gas station, the twitching figures, the small, lonely girl on the roof. He raised his voice, projecting it across the unnaturally silent clearing. "I offer a trade," he shouted. "Every memory in this camera, every single moment I've ever captured and kept, in exchange for Rob and Jenna's freedom, and mine, if you're feeling generous. But them first. That's the deal." The low hum from the station intensified, vibrating through the soles of his shoes. The figures began to sway more violently, their movements becoming frantic, like trees caught in a gathering storm. On the roof, the little girl stood up. Her form flickered, a glitch in reality. For a split second, she wasn't the hollow-eyed creature they'd been facing, but the actual child from 1959, complete with pigtails, her face a mask of pure terror. Her voice, when it came, was a chilling chorus, layered and ancient. "The town is considering," she said, her small mouth moving but the sound coming from everywhere at once. "It hasn't tasted a willing sacrifice in so very long, but it wants to know, how do we know you're not tricking us? How do we know you'll really give everything?" A sad, knowing smile touched Marcus's lips. "Because I'm not just giving them to you. I'm going to delete them, right now, while you watch." He lifted the camera, his knuckles brushing against the cold metal. "Every single photograph, every backed-up memory, everything. I'm going to actively, willingly destroy every curated moment I've ever saved. That's not the same as forgetting. That's choosing to let go. That is surrender." His finger hovered over the camera's menu button, a tiny piece of plastic that held the power to erase his entire existence. He thought of the thousands of photos stored within, his entire adult life's work. A grainy photo of him and his father laughing just months before he passed away. The vibrant chaos of his sister's wedding. The overwhelming, breathtaking moment he first laid eyes on the ocean. Every sunrise he'd ever chased, every stranger's fleeting smile he'd managed to capture. Every perfectly composed shot that had made him feel, just for a moment, like maybe he understood the world a little bit. Each one was a piece of his soul. "Marcus, don't," Jenna whispered, the sound choked with tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't do this." He didn't look at her. He couldn't. If he saw her pain, he might falter. "Tell my family I love them," he said, his voice thick with unshed emotion. "Even if I can't remember their faces after this, tell them I chose this. Tell them it mattered." His thumb pressed down. The camera's screen flashed a final, stark warning. "Delete 4,947 photos. This cannot be undone." He pressed confirm. The world screamed. It wasn't a sound you could hear with your ears. It was a sensation, a violent tearing of the very fabric of reality, which was then stitched back together in a new, raw pattern. All at once, the figures on the pavement collapsed, crumpling to the ground like marionettes whose strings had been simultaneously snipped. The little girl on the roof vanished into the night air. The gas station itself began to shimmer and fade, its solid lines blurring, its very existence becoming uncertain. Marcus felt the memories leaving him. It wasn't like before, where they were stolen, ripped away, leaving a jagged hole. This time they flowed out of him willingly, a great rushing river pouring into the hungry, empty space that was Stillwater Cove. But as they left, something profound happened. Instead of leaving empty holes, the departing memories left behind a quiet, certain knowledge. The knowledge that they had existed, that they had mattered, and that he, Marcus, had chosen to let them go for something more important. It was a strange, peaceful kind of emptiness. A sharp gasp broke the silence. Rob, who had been a vacant statue just moments before, stumbled forward. His eyes, suddenly clear and focused, darted around in confusion and abject terror. "What? Where are we?" "In the car, now!" Jenna screamed, her grief instantly replaced by urgent survival. She grabbed Rob's arm, yanking him with surprising strength toward their vehicle. "Marcus, come on!" But Marcus was transfixed, watching the impossible unfold. The gas station was dissolving like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. The crumpled figures on the ground were fading into nothingness, finally released from their decades of looping torment. And the road ahead, was changing. It was no longer a cruel repeating loop. It was extending forward, carving a path into the unknown, a path of possibility. He could see it now, in the distance. A real, solid highway. A way out. "Marcus!" Jenna's voice cut through his trance. She was already in the driver's seat, the engine roaring to life. "Now!" He ran. His legs felt strange and uncoordinated, as if he'd forgotten the basic mechanics of how to use them, but instinct propelled him forward. He threw himself into the back seat just as Jenna slammed her foot on the gas. The car rocketed forward, tires squealing on the asphalt, leaving the dissolving nightmare of the gas station behind them. This time the world didn't reset. This time they didn't loop back. The road stretched on, straight and true, taking them through the dark trees, past landmarks that stayed exactly where they were supposed to be. They were heading toward a horizon where the sun was finally, actually, rising. They hit the main highway just as dawn broke fully across the sky, painting the clouds in brilliant strokes of orange and pink. It was the most beautiful sunrise Marcus had ever seen, even though he couldn't remember a single other one to compare it to. He was empty, but he was free. And for now, that was everything. Thank you so much for watching this story unfold. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that explore the light and the dark. We'll see you in the next video. 3 days later, state troopers found him. Marcus, wandering along Highway 101 just south of the Oregon border. He was dehydrated, confused, and clutching an empty camera. No memory card. When they asked his name, he had to pull out his wallet, check his driver's license just to remember. The police report was strange. He kept insisting 2 other people had been with him, Jenna and Rob. But authorities couldn't find any record of them. No one matched his vague descriptions. When they pressed him for details, he had none. He couldn't picture Jenna's face or recall Rob's last name. He couldn't even remember how he knew them. He just knew, with this deep, unshakable certainty, that they were real, and that he had saved them. His family came to get him from the hospital. His sister held his hand and just cried when he looked at her, a stranger, and asked who she was. His mother, bless her heart, pulled out old photo albums, pages filled with smiling faces, hoping to spark something. But they were just pictures to him, images of strangers who happened to be looking at a camera with love in their eyes. The neurologist had a name for it, dissociative amnesia, brought on by trauma and dehydration. They said his memories might come back, with time and therapy. Marcus didn't tell them the truth. He knew they wouldn't come back. They couldn't, because he'd given them away. Willingly, he'd made a choice, and every choice has a consequence. But here's the thing. Marcus did remember some things. He remembered the feeling, the raw, powerful feeling of saving someone. He remembered that sacrifice could be noble. And he remembered, with crystal clarity, standing in a place where time itself seemed to fold and bend, and choosing to let go of everything he held dear. Late at night, when sleep wouldn't come, he'd pick up his empty camera. He'd feel its weight in his hands, a solid, familiar thing in a world that had become unfamiliar. The camera hadn't forgotten, even if he had. Sometimes, if he held it just right, he could almost see them. Flickers of images that weren't there. A woman with dark hair laughing. A man with kind eyes. Moments of friendship that now only existed in that ghostly space between memory and forgetting. His therapist suggested he start taking pictures again, build new memories to replace the ones he'd lost. So Marcus tried. He went out, camera in hand, and captured sunsets, busy street scenes, the faces of strangers who might one day become friends. But every single photograph felt wrong, incomplete, because he knew, even if he couldn't explain why, that photographs weren't meant to be kept forever. They were meant to be offerings, tributes, a way of saying that a moment mattered, even after it was gone. 6 months after his rescue, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photograph printed on old, fragile paper. It showed 3 people standing together, smiling. He recognized himself. The others, a man and a woman, they looked familiar in a way that made his chest ache. On the back, in a handwriting he didn't recognize but somehow trusted, were 3 words. "We made it." Marcus put the photograph in a frame and set it on his desk. He didn't remember their names or their stories. He couldn't recall how they'd all ended up in that moment captured on paper. But he knew with that same gut certainty that had guided him before that they mattered, that saving them had mattered. And he knew something else too. On those hot summer nights, when the air grew thick and heavy, he felt a pull, a strange magnetism drawing him toward the coast, toward a place he couldn't quite remember, where time moved strangely and memory was currency. A part of him he knew would always be there, in Stillwater Cove, feeding the hunger of a town that had finally learned to taste the sweetness of a willing sacrifice, instead of just stealing moments. The town still existed. Marcus was sure of it. It still trapped travelers on those suffocating summer nights, consumed their memories, collected figures for its eternal, silent vigil. But now, somewhere in its hollow heart, it carried something new. It carried the memory of someone who chose to give, rather than have something taken. Someone who understood that sometimes, the only way to escape a trap is to spring it yourself. Marcus never tried to find Stillwater Cove again. He avoided coastal highways during heat waves. He changed the channel if the news mentioned unexplained disappearances. He threw away maps that showed abandoned towns along the coast. But sometimes in his dreams he'd walk those looping roads again. He'd see the little girl from 1959, finally at peace, her borrowed time released. He'd see himself at that gas station, deleting everything he had worked so hard to preserve. And in those dreams, he never regretted it. Because some things are worth more than memory. Some things are worth everything. His sister visited often, helping him piece his life back together. One day, she brought over an old friend, someone she said had traveled with Marcus years ago. The man looked familiar. Something about his eyes, but Marcus just couldn't place him. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I don't remember you." The man smiled, a kind, understanding smile. "That's okay. I remember for both of us." He paused for a moment, then added, his voice soft. "You saved my life once. I never got to thank you." After the man left, Marcus found himself crying without knowing why. He picked up his camera and took a photograph of his own reflection in the window. A man caught in the space between who he was and who he was becoming. A man defined not by what he remembered, but by what he'd been willing to forget. The photo was perfect. The exposure, the composition, technically flawless. He deleted it immediately, because Marcus finally understood what the camera never could. Some moments aren't meant to be kept. They're meant to be lived, and then released, allowed to fade into the beautiful uncertainty of all things that pass. The town had taught him that. His sacrifice had taught him that. And now, on hot summer nights when the air grows thick, Marcus stands on his balcony and faces the coast. He thinks about a place he can't quite remember, about people he saved from a fate he almost shared. He thinks about the price of freedom and the value of a choice. The summer town still remembers everyone who enters. But Marcus has learned to forget. And in that forgetting, he has finally found a way to be free. Thank you so much for joining me on this story. If you felt that pull, that strange sense of wonder and loss, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more tales from the places we forget. See you next time. They found Marcus 3 days later wandering down Highway 101. He was confused, dehydrated, and clutching an empty camera. He couldn't even remember his own name without checking his driver's license. He kept insisting he'd been with 2 others, Jenna and Rob, but the police found no record of them. He couldn't describe them, couldn't remember how he knew them. All he knew, with a certainty that defied logic, was that they were real, and that he had saved them. His family came to get him from the hospital. His sister cried when he asked who she was. His mother showed him old photos, but he was just looking at strangers. The doctors called it dissociative amnesia brought on by trauma. They said the memories might come back. But Marcus knew they wouldn't. He had given them away. He had made a choice. But some things remained. He remembered the feeling of saving someone. He remembered that sacrifice could be a noble act. And he remembered, with a chilling clarity, standing in a place where time itself bent and twisted, and choosing to let go of everything he was. Late at night, he'd hold his empty camera. It felt like the camera remembered even if he couldn't. Sometimes he'd see phantom images in his mind's eye. A woman with dark hair laughing, a man with kind eyes. Fleeting moments of a friendship that now only existed in the void between memory and forgetting. His therapist suggested he start taking photos again to build new memories. Marcus tried. He captured beautiful sunsets, busy streets, the faces of strangers. But every picture felt wrong, hollow. Because he knew, even if he couldn't say why, that photographs weren't meant to be kept. They were offerings, tributes to moments that mattered, especially after they were gone. 6 months later, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a single old photograph. It showed 3 people smiling. He recognized himself. The other 2, a man and a woman, felt so familiar it made his heart ache. On the back, in a handwriting he somehow trusted, were 3 words: "We made it." He framed the photo and put it on his desk. He still didn't know who they were, but he knew they mattered. He knew that saving them had mattered, and he knew something else. On hot summer nights, when the air turned thick and heavy, he felt a pull toward the coast, toward a place he couldn't remember, a place where memory was currency. A part of him was still there, in Stillwater Cove, feeding the hunger of a town that had finally tasted willing sacrifice instead of stolen moments. The town was still out there. He was sure of it. Still trapping travelers, still consuming their memories, still collecting silent figures for its eternal vigil. But now something new existed in its hollow heart. The memory of someone who chose to give, who understood that the only way to escape a trap is to spring it willingly. Marcus never went looking for Stillwater Cove again. He avoided coastal highways on hot days. He changed the channel if the news mentioned mysterious disappearances. But in his dreams, he walked those looping roads. He saw the little girl from 1959, finally at peace. He watched himself at that gas station, deleting everything he had ever been. And in those dreams, he never felt a single moment of regret. Some things are worth more than memory. Some things are worth everything. His sister visited often, trying to help him piece his life back together. One day she brought an old friend, a man who claimed to have known Marcus years ago. There was something familiar about his eyes, but the connection wasn't there. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I don't remember you." The man just smiled, an understanding smile. "That's okay," he said softly. "I remember for both of us." He paused, then added, "You saved my life once. I never got to thank you." After the man left, Marcus found himself crying, though he didn't know why. He picked up his camera and took a photo of his reflection in the window, a man caught between who he was and who he was becoming. A man defined not by what he remembered, but by what he was willing to forget. The photo was perfect, flawless. He deleted it immediately. Because Marcus now understood what the camera never could. Some moments aren't meant to be captured and kept. They're meant to be lived, and then released into the beautiful, fleeting passage of time. The town had taught him that. His sacrifice had taught him that. And now, on those hot summer nights, Marcus stands on his balcony and faces the coast. He thinks about a place he can't quite remember, and the people he saved from a fate he almost shared. He thinks about the price of freedom and the power of choice. The summer town remembers everyone who ever entered its borders. But Marcus has learned to forget. And in that act of forgetting, he has finally, truly, found his freedom. 3 months after Marcus's rescue, an article appeared in the Portland Tribune. It was buried in the back pages, where strange stories often go to die. The headline read, "Abandoned Coastal Town Scheduled for Demolition." The article detailed the fate of Stillwater Cove, that hazardous ghost town along Highway 101, which was finally set to be demolished that fall. The town had been mostly abandoned since 1983, but it was infamous for the numerous disappearances that had occurred there over the years. Recent surveys had found the entire area unstable, citing unusual geological formations as the cause. One surveyor was quoted in the piece, and his words were chilling. "It's like time moves differently there," he noted. "Our equipment kept malfunctioning, and we kept losing track of how long we'd been on site." Despite the eerie findings, the demolition was approved. There were protests, of course. Some locals argued that the town needs to be left alone to do its work, but the state, citing public safety, overrode their concerns. The demolition was scheduled to begin on the first day of autumn, just as the summer's heat would finally break. Marcus never saw that article. If he had, what would he have felt? Relief? A flicker of concern? Maybe just a ghost of recognition? A faint echo of a nightmare he couldn't quite recall? But in the end, it didn't really matter. The town would either survive the demolition or it wouldn't. It would find new, winding roads to open on hot summer nights, or its insatiable hunger would finally fade into nothingness. The outcome was beyond his control, beyond anyone's, really. What truly mattered was something far more personal, something that resonated deep within the world, even if he couldn't remember it. What mattered was that somewhere out there, two people whose names he had long since forgotten were living their lives. They were carrying precious memories that he had helped preserve, memories he had saved by choosing to sacrifice his own. He had made a trade, a profound exchange in a place that dealt in lost time and fractured identities. He had looked directly into the heart of something vast, hungry, and utterly incomprehensible. It was a force that consumed people, that twisted reality itself. But Marcus hadn't offered it fear. He hadn't fought back with resistance. Instead, he offered it something unexpected, understanding. He offered it a choice. In that moment of impossible clarity, he had changed the rules of the game. On the worst night of his life, in a place where reality bent into impossible shapes, where time looped and folded in on itself, and where memory dissolved like sugar in water, Marcus learned the most important truth of all. He learned that who you are isn't defined by the things you remember. It's not the sum of your past experiences or the stories you can tell. No, who you are is determined by what you're willing to sacrifice for others. It is forged in the moments you choose to give a piece of yourself away for someone else's sake. Stillwater Cove, the summer town that remembered everyone who ever set foot within its limits, had finally met someone who taught it about the power of forgetting. And that one act of selfless sacrifice, that one lesson in letting go, had made all the difference. It had set him free, and in doing so, perhaps it had offered a kind of freedom to the town itself. The story of Marcus and Stillwater Cove wasn't one of horror, but of a strange and profound grace found in the most unlikely of places. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through such a compelling story. If you enjoyed this narration and want to explore more tales like this, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world and helps me bring more stories to life. We'll see you in the next one.